What's up? What's up?
Hey y'all, what's going on? What up, David? Bright and early,
Bright and early.
teacher's pet.
What's wrong with you?
You bring us an apple, ain't that? What's with the apple? Is there like some story behind that? Like students bringing teachers an apple?
I'm sure there is, but I do not know it. But maybe somebody in the comments will know.
I know if we got any teachers in the house, feel free to enlighten us about the apple situation. Don't bring me no apple. Bring me a pomegranate
I
or a
personally,
mango.
I personally like plums. So
I feel like it's easy to get plums wrong. They
it
be too
is. It
sour.
is. I like them firm too, and they're not always firm.
I feel like I want something with skin though. I don't trust them motley paws. Like, bring me
Oh,
like
you mean that? You
mango.
mean that you can peel?
Yes.
Well, I mean that's why you wash your fruit.
Mm.
First of all, it's all handled by a million people anyway.
But have you seen? Wasn't it on What's the fuck? What is that movie called about the atomic bomb?
Oh, Oppenheimer.
Oppenheimer. Was it? Did you see that part? Have you seen it?
I fell asleep.
Oh, well, there was a part. It was at the very beginning. I think he was about to give like the professor. He like was about to poison the professor with an apple.
I do vaguely remember that. I do vaguely remember that.
Yeah. And then the dude that he liked was about to bite the apple, and so he like slapped it out of his hand.
Listen, I wanted to watch the movie so much, but it was just moving so slow for me, and I was like, "This is not gonna work."
It was
Oh, best part of Mondays. Thank you, Ricky.
you calling us Mondays? Have you heard that? That like in Boston, they call Black people Mondays because everybody hates Mondays.
Is this something you're just making up?
I am not making it up.
Are you not
I
saying
swear,
that?
I swear, I put that on Walter. I put that on Walter. No, that is a
Oh my god!
thing. They call Black people Mondays because everybody hates Mondays.
I'm just gonna let y'all know that the reason why
Google it. Ricky talk about here she go. Google it. It's true.
I'm over here fighting for my life, y'all. I don't know if you can hear it in my voice, but that's why I'm not at Sharice's today because I don't want to get other people sick. So yeah, that's why I sound like I'm underwater at the moment, and I'll probably be having to turn and blow my nose many times. I've gone through a whole box of tissue since yesterday, so I'm trying to hang in there. Geo, so we don't have any encampments at Northeastern. I don't know if you're following what's happening at Wayne State. I don't know, but at Northeastern we don't, but we do have like I told y'all last week, we have had smaller demonstrations where students have been targeted by administration. They had some hearings last week actually. But no, none of the big encampment stuff.
Yeah, so at Harvard, so not that Harvard's my school, but they had solidarity protests with Columbia, and they actually just closed Harvard Yard for the week in anticipation of protests. So they're trying to stave off Harvard, like Harvard fighting for their life. These Ivies are fighting for their life, but also fuck them.
Yeah. Thanks for the well
Yeah,
wishes, y'all. I'm trying. I'm better than I was. I'm better than I was.
there's one at MIT as well, David. I don't know if Emerson is closer to you, but there's one at MIT as well.
Okay.
So yeah, it's going down. I doubt there's anything at Wayne State just because of the student population. There is a large Arab population, but it's also like more of a commuter school.
Well, I will say
But
when we were in Detroit, well, we stayed in Dearborn, which is where there's even a larger Muslim population. But my Uber driver from the hotel to the airport was actually from Lebanon, but he noticed my name immediately, and he started talking about Layla Khaled, and I mentioned to him that I was named after her. We had a nice, good conversation all the way to the airport, and I'm not a person that likes to chit chat in Uber too much, but I actually thoroughly enjoyed my conversation with that man. He was very pleasant, and when I got out the car, he was like, "Free Palestine, keep up the good fight." So I appreciate it.
free Palestine. Okay, well it says that at the Wayne State SJP that um the the student senate passed a resolution demanding an end to WSPD being trained by the AOF. It passed 16-0 to 4. And this is another step in our fight for divestment and police accountability on campus. And it clearly shows when students fight, we win. So they doing their little this and that, but it doesn't. I don't think they're doing any like big encampments or protests as of yet.
Yeah.
So there's that. Let's
David
see.
said on Wednesday night, Jericho Boston is having a 70th birthday party for Mumia at the Parsons Center. And then, yes, we will both be at the Parsons Center on Friday.
Wednesday, I think I'll be in town. We should try to pull up if you're feeling better, Layla.
Listen, I better be. After this, I'm getting straight back into bed.
Gia, did you see them sending the Black People brigades of admins to stop the protest, suspended student, and collected the cops? Are they being used? Yep. For some reason, it seems to me that the blacks are like at the front lines of being the mammies and the handkerchief heads for Empire.
You know, I worked 1 year in student affairs after I finished my PhD, and I loved it because it was fun. But that was something that was always in the back of my mind. Like in the event that something actually popped off, I am not about to be the middleman for these people. I'm not gonna do it, and that's why I knew I couldn't stay in student affairs.
Mm-hmm. Shout out to People Centered Human Rights and these neurologists. All right, y'all. So we can hop right in to the show today. So
okay, so for our first life updates, my biggest life update is that the semester is over, which I honestly kind of think might be why I'm sick. I was telling Sharice this earlier that I think I have this thing where like I go, and then when I finally get like when things either plateau or or what's the other one, crescendo, then I just kind of collapse and get sick. And so I think that is what is the deal. But the bigger thing for me is that I have to finish this book this summer. And so my plan, I'm not doing a whole lot of traveling this summer. So my plan is to actually spend the summer doing reading and writing sheets to get to a place where I can submit this manuscript to Duke Press. Not probably to press by the end of August. So y'all give me all your energy. That's what I'm going to be doing this summer. I'm sure Sharice and I will be doing some of that together. But that is, if you see me like, even though I hate it, how's the book coming? Because that is what to focus on. Because everything else, I'm good at my little merit review stuff from school, from work. And this is just the last for me. So that is almost for the next 4 months.
Yeah, so you can do a check-in on each show. You was breaking up a little bit, but I think we got the gist of it. But yeah, every show, you need to give us an update on where you are with the book, what you've been doing. So we're going to be your accountability.
Okay, I will do that. I don't know why my internet is messing up today.
Hating.
It's very
so for my update, just y'all, I'm fighting for my life, man. It's a lot, but I'm coming to the end of this very busy period. So last week I was on this. I was at Arizona State for it was Genocide Awareness Week. The key. So they had there's a man from Brown University. I forgot his name, but he's a Jewish fella. He actually did the keynote. And it was interesting because he fell short of saying that Israel was committing genocide, but he was saying, and then also he tried to make the argument that we should be focused on Israel's war crimes because war crimes is easier to prove than genocide, and it has more, I guess, more immediate material consequences. Now I felt like, okay, he's as left as one can be as a liberal Jew, or that's as much accountability. And he was in the not as a Jew, I'm so sorry, as an Israeli. He's Israeli and he was in the IDF. So that is as sort of left. I felt like for what it was and for where he was, like, because this was like Genocide Awareness Week, which I'm sure at one point was Holocaust Awareness Week. I thought it was radical for the context. But I also, and I at first there was a couple times I was about to leave because the woman that introduced him was out of fucking pocket. All she talked about was Hamas's terrorist attack on Israel and didn't say anything about the tens of thousands of Palestinians that have been murdered and anything like that. So I was about to walk out, but I was like, you know what? Let me listen. And there was things that he said that obviously I was rolling my eyes and stuff, but I was like, it was just interesting to hear. Okay, this is how they're arguing. This is how normalization is argued out, right? Because he also was advocating not for a two-state solution, but it was some, I guess there's some, I forgot the name of the plan that he was saying that it is, but like basically there's two, I guess there is two states, but if for Palestinians in Israel, you keep your Israeli citizenship, but you vote in the Palestine section. And if you're an Israeli in Palestine, you stay there, you can stay there, but you vote in the Israeli section and blah, blah. It was some, yeah. So it basically was normalization, but I was just like, this is very interesting. I left before the Q&A because I couldn't be bothered, but it was interesting. Then I had so y'all know I'm on fellowship at Harvard. I had my Warren Center workshop on Thursday, which went pretty well. Layla was there. It was a little bit dead, like, like I feel like it's the end of the semester. So I didn't feel like there was asked for, like a couple of fellows were missing. I was surprised that so Robin Spencer, she's part of the workshop. I was surprised that she didn't have anything to contribute, because basically my thing was looking at antecedents of Black power in the McCarthyist conjuncture. So the period of 1947 to 1957, like comparing that period to like the Black power era. But anyway, I think I got some good feedback for people who I think had, like Martha Biondi and Sam Klug. So people who had like good insight commented. So I was just glad to get it out the way because I wrote that paper in like 3 days, y'all. I'm not gonna lie. Then on Friday, I was at Brown for. So there's some editors who are coming out with the Du Bois and Political Economy volume, and so they invited myself and Akhil Palsing as sort of interlocutors to. We read all the pieces that will be in that collection, and then just talked through, gave in, like they sent us a bunch of questions that we responded to, etc. I actually really like that model. I think it's a great model for doing like projects. It's kind of like a manuscript workshop, but not really. It's just like, we were basically thought partners for these people. I thought that was really interesting. And I felt good about that because, like, y'all know, half the time my brain don't be working. I be forgetting names and everything. But I was like, oh, okay, I still got juice a little bit. Like, I can still think like an intellectual when I want to. Then just earlier at 1:00 p.m., I presented the same thing. Basically, I presented at the Warren Center for this organization called the Center for the Study of Social and Global Justice. They have like a seminar. It's based in the UK. So that was cool. There's a man named, I think it's John Higginbotham, that I actually really like. I think, you know what? I think he was at the Marx thing. That's that thing that was in France that we went to. Was it Nice? Yeah, he's an older white cat.
Yeah, last time, yeah.
And he was talking about Harry Haywood. I think that was him. Yeah. So I appreciated him, and he was there. He had some good comments, and so that was cool. I had Sankara. For some reason, she was well behaved for that. I know she was acting up last week, y'all, but that's okay. My baby can do whatever she wants, but she was actually really chill, and anyway. And then this Thursday, I have a keynote at Dartmouth. So, and then we have our talk on Friday, which we'll talk about in a minute, at the Parsons Center. But it's a busy time. But I think that after this week, I think I have one more thing next week. And then at the end of May, I'll do a talk at UCLA, and then for the No Name Book Club. And then I think that I'm done, y'all. So it's a lot, but I'm grateful. As I said last week, don't treat a gift like a burden. So I'm very grateful, but it's been a lot of travel, and I'm very tired. But indeed, I'm grateful for the intellectual engagement.
All right. Well, you already mentioned that we'll be at the Parsons Center on Friday. So anybody who's in the area, we look forward to seeing y'all. So for the wrap up of the life section, we wanted to have a short conversation about the difficulties, the challenges of adult friendships.
Mhm.
So Sharice came across this thread on Threads that we're gonna read aloud, and then we're gonna talk about a little bit.
Give me a second. I gotta go grab my phone. Hold on.
Well, I have the thread.
Hold on. Yeah, I just want to. Let's see. Oh, are you gonna
I was gonna
put
pull
it
it
up
up,
on the screen? Oh, that's okay. Okay. Yeah.
but I don't understand. There's so many.
Oh, Layla? Did you have any more updates on the Zionist student?
Oh, so yeah, at the end, at the end of the semester. So I have not. They submitted their papers recently. So I haven't looked at it yet. But the last day of class, I had them do like just like 5 minute kind of presentations about what their final projects were going to be. I do not like to come back to class after classes are over. So I don't do exams. I don't believe in exams. So they usually have papers or final projects. And the 2.5 hour time period of the exam wouldn't have been enough for them all to present anyway. Excuse me. So I haven't looked at the papers, but she told me that was not told me. She told the class, excuse me, that she was doing her final paper on objectivity, which she said she was really inspired by things that I said in the class about my lack of belief in objectivity. So I once I read it, I will let y'all know next week how it went. But it was not hostile. In the end, she stayed all the way, she participated all the way. I do hope that something resonated with her over the course of those 15, 16 weeks. I was telling Sharice today, like, I didn't actually realize until the end of the semester that I had so many Jewish students in my class. I think I had about 12, but she was the only, as far as I knew, Zionist student in the class. But you know, it's funny because I think if any of you who follow me, I posted a note that I got from one of my students today about, you know, being thankful for how I had created an environment where they felt welcome. So it's interesting, you know, that it was such drama in the beginning of the semester. Where, you know, obviously, well, I'm hoping it seems that the other students did not feel that. And so I'm glad that that has ended. But I am teaching the same class again in the fall. So we shall see how that goes. But yeah, I'll keep y'all updated. I
Yeah. So back to you don't I mean you don't have to put it up. We can
okay.
just kind of read it. But
Okay.
so I have found this thread on Threads. Actually, I saw the thread on Instagram because I don't ever be on Threads. But it's about friendships, right? And it was interesting because it is only tangentially related, but it reminded me of a conversation that Layla and I had at one point, right? But our conversation was better. But anyway, so we're gonna read this and just think about like what it means to have especially adult friendships across difference in sort of life situation,
Yeah.
right? So okay, so she started off, it's somebody named Glow Graphics. So she said, I feel like enough time has passed to share this story. I once had a friend say that my joy triggered her because as a mother, she no longer is living the carefree life she loved, and my current life reminds her of that. At first, I didn't know what to do with this information, but I also knew it confirmed what I already felt and kept denying. Our gut exists for a reason, and that all feeling you have is often correct. Here's the lesson I learned from that awkward but necessary conversation.
Our life is mostly dictated by two C's, the first being circumstances and the second being choices. We can't always control the first, so it's up to us to make conscious choices for the rest of our lives to enhance our circumstances. But choices almost always come at a cost or a sacrifice of something else. The tricky part is when we feel entitled to better circumstances while making those choices without the willingness to compromise.
She had recently become a mother after swearing she wouldn't, but her husband desired it, and it was a choice she was willing to commit to together. Parenthood inevitably changes everyone, and honestly, in almost every case with friends, it's been for the better. But the loss of personal freedom, I assume, wasn't something she knew how to prepare for. It started with bitter comments that I ignored, and then it evolved into passive aggressive statements about my choice to be child free.
The worst part, The harshest statement she said to was said to someone else, and it got back to me. I'm not confrontational like that, and by that point, I was already drafting my exit conversation because the signs all led to the same direction. The conversation was thanking her for the past and releasing her from my future. Be mindful of those who secretly covet your life and only befriend you for proximity to the feeling they want to experience themselves.
To be joyful, intentional, and aligned in life because of a series of choices you've made over a decade should be inspiring and yield compersion, not comparison. I closed myself off for a while after that happened, and several therapy sessions later, I'm grateful for the discernment that's been developed since. Never be so attached to the idea of befriending someone, no matter how publicly adorned they are, that you allow blatant disrespect. If you have a similar story, I'd love to hear it.
So I'll give just a little bit of context about how this conversation is related to Sharice and I's experience. So those of you who've been watching the show for a while, y'all know I was married for 11 years. You know, I was basically divorced at 33 years old. And I come from a very big, like family oriented family. So like as a kid, I will say I never like dreamed about weddings or any shit like that, but I always in my mind thought I would be a mother. Like I would have children. And so to be at 37 years old and not have children and not be in a relationship, I'm like, And so, like, so over the past year, you know, obviously Sharice had a baby and another friend of mine had a baby. And I'm genuinely happy for them, but I'm also like struggling with my own personal feelings. And so I remember one day just like having a moment and like spiraling, like, and it wasn't really about them. It was just about my own anxiety about where my life was going. And I called another friend who is a mutual friend of my friend Tahira and I was like, I just need to talk to you for a minute. And I was like, I just need to like say this to someone because I would never say this to Sharice. I would never say this to Tahira, but like, I'm just like, having my own moment about not being where I want to be. And I later revealed that because like when I was having that moment, I think it was before Sankara was even born. And I think my friend Tahira's baby had been born, but my friend Tahira had also just gone through the loss of her mother through her pregnancy. And I was just like, I would never say this to them. But then later on, you know, I revealed it. And Sharice said to me, she was like, I kind of had a feeling that you might have some of those feelings because she knew I wanted to, you know, have a family or whatever, which wasn't necessarily on your list of things to do for your life, right? Now, for between us, that it was none of that energy, but I understood why that particular thread made you think about the conversation that you and I had previously.
Yeah, and it reminded me precisely because, well, number one, we didn't have the conversation when you were having those feelings actively. So I
Yeah.
think that was something else, but for myself, like I sensed it not because you acted any type of way, but just because I know you, and also because, and so for me it was like feeling ambivalent about sharing stuff, like different like milestones in my pregnancy. And by the way, like I was ambivalent about this formation, right? Like, because unlike Layla, I thought I was gonna be a cute rich auntie, BBL. Like, if I married, it would be strictly for money and convenience. Independently wealthy socialist, y'all. I still got my politics, but still, like, and I I fell in love at the Black Alliance for Peace meeting. What do you know, right? And so, but I still, even while pregnant, had ambivalence that, like, but I also did it like that I would like to have talked about, but then, knowing that you might have felt a certain way, it's like, oh man, I guess I should feel grateful about this or whatever. All this stuff, right? All of these things. But at no point did Layla ever make me feel like fucking bitch. Like, it was never like that, right? And there are times when I do feel I wouldn't say envious is the word, but there are times I like I say halfway jokingly, but halfway serious. There's probably like a little point in every day where I'm like, bitch, you had it all. Like, what is going on? Like, when I'm feeling like, oh man, I would like to be able to have this meeting without like having to worry about my baby, or like, I would like to be able to thinking about my birthday. I would just be able to go do some shit and just get shit faced and not have to worry about breast milk, like, that type of thing. And so, but all of that to say, right, it's not just about adult friendship. It's also about adult friendships across like different, like, I guess, life
Mhm.
milestones, right? Because
Yeah,
there can be this sort of impasse when people get married.
yeah.
If people get a job, a promotion at a job, and you're not where you want to be in your job,
And to be
anything,
fair, I
right?
think in the short, it's been 5 years now. We met in 2019. In the
Mhm.
5 years, we've been through a lot of fucking life. Okay, like
Yes,
both of us, like
yes, yes.
major losses, job transitions, moving, new family formations, like all those things. And I think that for the most part, navigating those challenges, like obviously there have been feelings at different times, and like, you like that's what happens with friendships. Like sometimes you just gotta air shit out. But I think over the course of that, I think we've been, because I will say this: when I first met you, I was married, but I was unhappily married, and I was like,
I forgot about that nigga.
but the point being that I was married, I was unhappily married,
Fair.
and so when we were like traveling and doing stuff together, and I'm just like, I would really like to just be raggedy and ratchet right now, but I'm married and I need to do better. So,
I
and I
remember.
think by that point the writings were already on the wall that relationship was over. But I think it has been interesting that on the one hand, because I know the other sort of element to that is that we're kind of in the same, class bracket, but like also what it
Right.
means to maintain friendships over like very different abilities to do things, and like having a friend that actually like wants to travel for their birthday, which I'm always down to travel, but then other people not necessarily having the means to do that, or
Right.
people not even having the means to like really afford a birthday gift, right? And for some people, like for me, I'm not a big birthday person, but I know Sharice, you are a big birthday person, so I know
Mm-hmm.
those things matter, and like having to navigate what it means to say, okay, these things might not be that important to me, but if it's important to a person that's important to me, then I need to think about how to make room for this, right?
Right. Yeah. So I randomly just started thinking about like cross class friendships are those the most difficult to sustain, right? Because even in like cross racial relationships, they tend to be based on proximity. So if I have a white, I think I got a white, yeah, I have a white friend, like an academic, right? So yeah, I got white friends. I don't know. I know I do for sure. Like they tend to be in academia, for example. So like similar sort of petty bourgeois, whatever the fuck, right? But I was thinking about it and I'm like, you know what? Like I think I have comrades of different class positions, but I don't know that I have close friends that aren't some type of professional, right? And now I don't know if that's just, and that's weird, right? I don't know. And I don't exactly know why that is because I really can't stand petty bourgeois motherfuckers. Um, but to Layla's point, I think it is because at a certain point in your life, you want to be able to do things, right? Like you want to be able to travel, or you might have, I don't know, like when you have kids, it's like you have baby showers and like there's a gift thing, there's the way that there's a correlation between like leisure time and money and all these types of things.
Yeah.
And so I was just thinking about that, like, but also it's not just about um working class and petty bourgeois. I ain't got no bourgeois friends. Like I don't think I have any like actual people who own the means of production, like any
Mm.
really rich friends. I really don't, right?
Uh-huh.
I might have maybe some black bourgeois, which is like, whatever, but
Yeah.
like no like blue ivy. So and I wonder if like those type of people can actually have relationships with regular motherfuckers. Like, maybe if they got a cousin or something, but like I really wonder if it is
But
possible
even
to
that,
sustain.
right? Even the cousin thing, like what I think what you see more often than not is that people who ascend to that level, they complain more often than not that their relationships with their family shifts because the primary like mode of exchange between them and their family members now is being asked
Financial.
for financial
Mm-hmm.
support, right? And not ouch, and not that that's necessarily a bad thing, but I do think like when your relationship centers around what a person can do for you or can't do for you, then that is a different dynamic than when you seem to be able to both support each other to differing degrees, right? But I mean, I think, and the same thing is in relationships. Like, at the moment, I'm dating someone who is a union worker, an iron worker, right? And like their work schedule is 4 o'clock in the morning to 2 o'clock in the afternoon. They come in, and we hang out for a little while, but by 8, 9 o'clock, they trying to go to bed because they got to get up, and they don't have the ability, really, the time or the resources to like travel the way that I do. And so there ends up being a significant portion of my life that doesn't necessarily involve this person, because we have very different lifestyles. And I think all the time about how to, like, what that will actually look like and how to reconcile that. But I do think in the case of friendships, it's nice at least to be able to talk about these things. Whereas I think sometimes, like, we just sit with those feelings ourselves and we don't actually talk through them, what they mean, and figure out how to work them out. And I
Mm-hmm.
think that that's something that's actually very important if we really are committed to our own politics about creating
Mm-hmm.
a life in a world where we can all kind of be, certain ways in the world. But I think we often avoid those conversations because they're difficult, because they're uncomfortable, because we don't want to carry sort of any kind of baggage or come off a particular kind of way. But I do think there's something really important about being able to have those conversations in a real authentic way.
The other thing that I think with respect to Black people in particular is why cross class collaborations might not be super prevalent. Maybe they are, but one of the reasons perhaps they are not is because class is so aspirational for Black people. And part of that aspiration is to like wall yourself off, right? Because proximity is everything. And so you're always sort of reaching up
Yeah.
or trying to like associate yourself with people who are of a higher class or who have particular accoutrements of class as opposed to the other way around, right? And
Yeah.
so but for I think that for me, it's like I literally am friends with I'm in a immediacy person because I also have friends who like if I'm not around you, I don't really talk to you that much. But even if we don't talk for a year, when we talk, we pick back up right where we left off. But it's like I tend to be friends or have the most active friendships with people who are immediately around me. And persons who are immediately around me tend to be people who are in or adjacent to like academia and more recently like organizing stuff, right? And I would say I have more comrades that are like working class or working poor than like close friends. Although
Mm.
I have like 3 friends, let's be honest, shit. So there's also that, but it's something interesting to like to think about. And again, and yeah, to check our own politics is like, it's like for me, it's not anything having to do with like class aspiration or ass on my shoulders. I truly do think it's just because of the people like that I'm around. But I think it's important, like just like I think that all comrades are not friends, but I don't think you can be comrades with somebody you hate. So too, I think you care more about or are more invested in whatever the circumstances are when you have people close to you that are in that circumstance, right?
Yeah.
So yeah.
I mean, because like part of your, like, my two friends, Nidra and Tahira, like, they're still my close friends, but we work together at UMass Boston. And since I've left, there is a different dynamic in our friendship because the two of them are still there. And so they have a relationship where they see each other more frequently because they work together, right? And so then when you're outside of your workplace and you're talking about life and things, right? Like, I'm not as a much of an integral part of their daily life in that type of way. And so some of those conversations I can weigh in on and some of them I can't. But I also think part of being an adult is knowing that, like, the relationships you want to maintain take work.
Mm-hmm.
They take work in communication. They take work in planning time. Like right now, my weekly schedule consists of Mondays spending with Sharice and my goddaughter. Wednesdays I spend with Tahira and Nidra and her child, and on Fridays I spend with another friend of mine, Patrice. And that is like, and I will say that has only been the case in the last 4 months, but I am a lot happier in these last 4 months with like planned scheduled time to spend with my friends
Mm-hmm.
than I was before, when it was like haphazard, or I may or may not see them for weeks at a time. We look up, it's been 4 months since we've seen each other, right? And so I do think that all of these things are things that we have to be very intentional about in order to maintain, because when we're growing up, our friends are usually proximities, like it's who we go to school with every day. And, work friends are kind of a different genre of friends, particularly outside of the academy. The academy is a kind of different place.
Mm-hmm.
But I will say, I've said this before on the show, that like I feel like I've had friends. I'm a Delta. I was in a sorority. I've
Mm-hmm.
done other things, but I feel like my friendships with you and Nidra and Tahira in particular are the first time that I felt like I could really be all aspects of myself with
Mm-hmm.
the friendship, right? So like I could have my, intellectual take, I could have my political takes, I could be stupid sometimes and do all those other kinds of things. But like I didn't feel like I had to shut off a part of myself to push the friendship forward. Whereas I have felt that in most of my other friendships growing like
Mm-hmm.
to that point.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I think that the caveat to the class thing with respect to being academics is one, students, and two, staff, right? And
Yeah.
so I think that I literally do have students of all different class backgrounds that I deeply care about and have actual relationships with, which again gives you that like proximity, or makes it like a makes all these different categories, whether it's class, whether it's different like racial groups, whatever, different types of struggles, very like visceral and everyday.
Yeah.
So I would say that's the caveat, but it's very interesting to think about, right? And yeah, so it came out of that initial sort of, but circling back to uh that thread we were talking about, the tone of that thread rubbed me the wrong way. It really did. And I I think I agree with the idea of gently setting friendships down, that when it really is kind of, it feels like frenemy, right? But I think that the part that rubbed me the wrong way is when she said one is like, the tricky part is when we feel entitled to better circumstances while making those choices without the willingness to compromise. Like there was an assumption that this friend felt entitled to anything other than just feeling like grief or
Yeah.
despair, right?
Yeah.
About not about the loss of that aspect of their life, which I think is a human emotion. I think the other thing is
You said the
when
secret covet part.
yeah, be mindful of those who secretly covet your life and only befriend you for proximity to the feeling they want to experience themselves. Now, granted, maybe that's something that came out in their conversation, but it's like, it doesn't sound like she wants your life. It sounds like she
She
wants
wants
to,
her
or
old life
she
back.
misses, right, she misses the things that she once had, or misses sort of one thing that you're able to express. But it just felt, the tone felt a little bit like, I don't know, kind of self-centered, and there was just assumptions about, like your life, like I worked very hard for this life, and how dare somebody feel resentful that I have it, type thing. And I don't know, so that rubbed me the wrong way. And again, when I was thinking about this in comparison to Layla and Mai's conversation, it just was not like that. It was just that sort of like, ugh, that like, that self-righteousness just
Yeah.
wasn't there. You know what I mean? Because we're real fucking people.
Yeah. And we have emotions, and like you're entitled
Yeah.
to feel that way. I mean, that's what I appreciated about being able to call Deidre at that moment. That's what she said. She was like, these are real feelings that you're very much entitled to feel. I'm glad you called me. I'm glad you felt like I was a person that you could call, because I would have
Right.
never said it in that moment. But yeah, no, I definitely feel that with you. I also just want to say, M said, damn, extrovert lives seem to be different. I don't. I am not an extrovert by any stretch of the
At all.
imagination, like at all. Like if y'all meet me in person, you will understand this. I am so not. Like I don't know that Sharice, you identify as an extrovert either, but I think you're even more outgoing than I am. But I am not an extrovert. But I like who I like. And so like I can spend an extended amount of time with the people that I feel comfortable with, but if I don't, like I always say I hate mixers. I cannot stand compulsory socialization. Now, but if there is a genuine thread that connects us, and I think we've told y'all this story a million times about how Sharice and I met. Like we were literally sitting, not talking to each other, but you overheard something about my research, and all of a sudden the conversation we started, and it went from there, right? So when there's something genuine, absolutely. So like over the weekend when we did the CMB retreat, like if there's something that we're talking about, absolutely. But just like being extrovert, just making friends and be around people, nah, that ain't me at all.
Mm-hmm. No, I can't. I'm not outgoing. I know I'm not outgoing, y'all. I'm not actually like that's. I think why part of the reason people think I think my non-outgoingness is comes out as bitchiness or like very insular. I don't think I'm more outgoing than you. I just think over time I just know more people. And so if we're at a thing, I might talk to more people, but like I'm not talking to strangers unless I'm being completely outlandish. Like, you know what I mean? If I'm just doing
Yes,
shit,
you
which
do
sometimes I
that
do.
sometimes.
Which sometimes I do, but like no, I don't feel like I'm outgoing at all. And I think that's because I know I have a very particular personality. And it's not for everybody. And I just say shit. And there's been times that I've caught myself just saying shit to people like you don't know that person and like they don't know anything about my personality, so they're probably like what the fuck. Anyway, so no, I definitely identify as an introvert or some yeah, because I don't get energy from social
Yeah,
gatherings. It's actually very
draining.
tiring, and I hate small talk. I can't count I can't count on two hands the number of times I literally took the stairs rather than be stuck in the elevator with somebody and have to engage in small talk. Like
You literally
I
said that to me this past weekend when we were together.
it like it's almost literally painful. So, you know, anyway, that was a very long friendship conversation.
Oh, I think it was
But
worth it.
yeah,
But Leah, I
I
will
think so.
say I am not looking forward to Sharice moving back to Detroit.
Hmm.
This is something that we've actually talked about and joked about over the years, particularly when we were both single. We were like, well, they do like same-sex spousal hires. Like we could just do a spousal hire and then we can live in the same city.
Listen, we trying to get to Philly. We trying to get to Charlotte. We trying to get.
DC,
We'll take Atlanta. Yeah, DC. It's like, come on, y'all. Like,
Atlanta, we'll take
hire
it, but
us.
it's at the bottom of the list. Atlanta's a lot.
Yeah, Atlanta's a lot. Atlanta's a lot. But like, we trying to get yes because it would just make our lives so much easier. We even talked about if I ended up around here buying like a triplex, for like
You know,
our
Bostonians
communal
like to
living.
call them triple deckers.
Oh, triple deckers. Anyway, so yeah, it's
Okay.
but it was fortunate for me to have my baby out here because somebody who wasn't said, "Can you watch my baby?" Yes, God is true. I do know that 8 years of having to who can watch my child is a lot different.
Yeah.
Hmm.
Yeah, and the thing is,
Yeah.
like, I happily, like, y'all, because I grew up in a big family, and I was like, literally, my dad is one of 13, my mom is one of 7. I got like 30 cousins on both sides, and I was like the designated like babysitter. Then I remember saying to Sharice, like, was it before COVID? I think I said like around COVID, I was like, I have literally not held a baby in like 3 years. And that was so uncharacteristic of my life. And so now to have 2 babies, they're about 4 months apart, 5 months apart, I think, that I get to see every week. Like it really does something for my mood. Like I really just be feeling so much better. Cause even before, like I was driving from here down to Virginia like every 2 or 3 months to see my niece because like those kinds of things do actually give me energy. I really enjoy being around babies and kids. So yes.
I'm warming up to the motherfuckers now. Now that I have one, I'm much more sympathetic to the child, especially children on airplanes. Because I used to be like, why didn't you just pack this person? Why didn't you check this baby? Honestly, yo. But like, check baggage claim. But no, but I'm much more sympathetic, and I think I like children now. When I see them playing, I'm like, oh, frolicking. My baby will be frolicking at some point. It's so cute. But I was never anti kids, but I definitely didn't want to hold the structurally unsound ones that like couldn't hold their heads and shit. They're just too wiggly and too squishy. But
Like,
now
they
it's
can
like
stay
now that
their
I have
level
the
when they're like
skills, yeah, the little gummy worm. Now that I have the skill, though, I'm like, okay, I can hold this wiggly baby. And I do get the urge, like if I hear a baby crying and a mother looks overwhelmed, I get the urge to be like, "You need help, sis,"
that. Which,
because I
and
get it.
sometimes people do need help, shit.
It's
But
true. All
okay, so
right,
that
y'all.
was an extended conversation, but I think it was worth it. And so
Mm-hmm.
we met you all asked, we delivered. So Anya will be joining us next week. So we have actually moved the discussion of those readings to next week. So we decided that today for study we would actually talk through some of the things that we're reading at the moment. So CBS, you can take it away.
All right. So these are like this is a combination of like what I'm reading, what I'm excited to read, and like what I recommend. I think I have one of each. Um, So the first book is this book, Revolutionary Notes. This is a book that I'm recommending, and I'm actually kind of like re-flipping through. And this book is, I'm thinking about this book right now because it's kind of like the genre that I want the book, the book that's the antecedents of Black Power and the McCarthyist conjuncture. I want it to be like this, and this is a collection of kind of like short essays. They're probably about like 500 words on different themes. That's really about, and this book is amazing because it's really a reflection of like that 1968 1969 moment that Julius Lester is writing in. This is a really amazing book. I taught it in the very first Black radical political thought class I taught at Carleton. I taught this book. I think it's out of print, but it's easy to find. But I think it's out of print. It's an amazing book. So, for example, there's essays like "Sneak in the Israeli-Arab War," Che Guevara and the Cult of Personality, "The White Radical is Revolutionary," "The House Arrest of H. Rap Brown," "Radicals in Media," "The Death of King," "Sneak in the Black Panthers," "Yippies in Chicago." So it really it gives a great reflection of what's happening at that time. And so Julius Lester, I think, was in SNCC. He was a comrade of Kwame Ture. He was a newspaper editor and all this other shit. So I really, really recommend this book. And then for people who don't love reading, this type of book is good because you can read like a couple short essays at a time. There's not a sort of narrative arc that you have to follow. But so this book, and then a comparison that has longer essays, but it's also good, is June Jordan. What is it? On Call political essays. I recommend as well. But anyway, so that's a book that I'm sort of flipping through, rereading. A book that I'm about to start reading that I've just read a couple pages is Red Africa: Reclaiming Revolutionary Politics by Kevin Oching Okoth, right here. And I'm reading this and thinking about this because of not only what's happening in the Sahel, but just because basically, so okay, here's what the description of this is. Red Africa makes the case for revolutionary Black politics inspired by Marxist anti-colonial struggles in Africa. Contemporary debates on Black radicalism and decolonization have lost sight of the concerns that animated the 20th century intellectual forebears. Okoth responds, challenging the claim that Marxism and Black radicalism are incompatible and showing that both are embraced in the anti-imperialist tradition he calls Red Africa. So this is just right in my wheelhouse. Y'all know, to me, I really just like reading shit that is already accessible to me. I'm not really somebody that reads like outside of my wheelhouse too much. So, and then this is a nice short book because I'd be feeling like I don't be reading at all. The last book I finished, I think cover to cover, was maybe Ori's book. And this is nice and short, so I could feel accomplished. And it could just kickstart my summer of reading. And then finally, Walter Rodney's Intellectual Political Thought by Rupert Charles Lewis. So this is an older book. So this was published in 1998. I actually met Rupert Lewis, but I'm at some point I'm going to do a project on Walter Rodney. And so this is just kind of background reading. I really am entering in an input season, which is also why when I work on my third book project, it's going to be shorter essays, because I feel like I've reached the edge of my knowledge. And so I'm entering into like an input season where I just want to kind of read. I need to kind of replenish the things that I'm thinking about and the things that I'm reading. So this was the first sort of biography. It's more of a political intellectual biography. But it's funny because this is from Wayne State University Press. Shout out Wayne State. But anyway, so this is another book that I am reading, well, flipping through just for now, but plan to read more diligently. So yeah, so those are my 3 books that I recommend and am reading.
Okay. I'm definitely gonna have to put Red Africa on the list. So for me, the one that I'm reading right now that I'm really enjoying is Imagination and Manifesto by Ruha Benjamin. So it's funny because I've been on 2 fellowships now where the theme was world making or world building, right? And then like I remember one of the first essays that I wrote was like Another World. It was the Pandemic of Racial Capitalism, Another World is Possible. And so I have been thinking for a long time about like what role does imagination sort of play, right? But what I really like about this particular book is that she's not thinking about imagination purely in the sense of, making things up, or like, or sort of thinking out of the box, but she's also pointing us to the places where other people's imaginations are having material impacts on us, right? And so she talks about um folks who are racing to build a colony in space, or folks who are trying to figure out, where underwater we can go, right? And she talks about the sort of the ways in which our imagination gets limited, and that all of these very like daily mundane things that we think about require imagination, like basic things, right? Like a computer required imagination at some point in time, right? These things that seem so ingrained in our daily lives required us to think about these things. And so she's thinking about what are the particular ways our imaginations have been limited, and what are the ways that we need to work to foster ideas, foster environments where imagination is generative, for our real material survival, right? So she's kind of bucking this notion that imagination is just a sort of literary imagination, or this kind of, unreal, unhuman space, but that it is that imagination is very crucial to our everyday material being. And I find that useful because when I'm trying to think about like what, as much as we talk about the things that we are facing in our life and what we want to get rid of, we really do have to do the work of thinking about what we want to put in place of those things. And I am a person who feels like I kind of have a somewhat limited imagination. And so like one of the exercises I really like doing with my class is like I ask them to like think about what would a world of abundance look like. And I'm not talking about like money, but like when everything you need is available to you, like what would that look like, and how would we be living and existing in that? And I really like when they get to ideate about that. And for the most part, because of what we're reading, they're thinking about material things, right? They're thinking about clean water and healthcare and education and all these other things, right? But that they think about that as a place of imagination. So I'm only about a third of the way through this book. She actually does like she cites Robert E.G. Kelly's Freedom Dreams pretty early on in this book as something that helped her think through her ideas about imagination. Um, so I definitely recommend this one. I've not finished it, but I definitely recommend this. The other one I'm reading, excuse me, is this who's it put out by 1804 Books, Our Own Path to Socialism, which is a collection of Hugo Chavez's speeches. It was edited by Manolo de los Santos from the People's Forum and BJ Prashad. A number of these speeches I have seen before, but I am trying. I think so. My book that I'm working on is tentatively titled like I've been working through different titles, but an anthropology of Pan Africanism or Pan African praxis in the 21st century. And one of the arguments that I make is that the Bolivarian Revolution under Chavez in particular can be read as a 20th century iteration of Pan Africanism, not exclusively, but can be read that way. And so I'm trying to look at some of these speeches along with some of like Nkrumah and Sekou Touré's rhetoric to think about what they were thinking about at the state level. In relationship to some of the ethnographic data that I have. So I would definitely recommend this one. And then my last one. So in the AAPRPGC, we have been, because we are co-organizing our African Liberation Day this year with the Palestinian Youth Movement, our study circles have been increasingly, we've been reading stuff on Palestine for the last couple months or whatever. And so one of the things that we read was this article by a woman named Frederica Stagny, which is When Feminism Redefines National Liberation, how Talit movement brought feminism to the core of the Palestinian national liberation struggle. And what I found useful about that particular article was that one, she tries to trace a kind of historiography of women's participation in national liberation struggles. But one of the things she really talks about is the difficulty, because of the particular position that Palestinians have been in over the last century, some of the tensions between attempting to resolve some of the gender issues while still being attentive to the question of national liberation. And I think we had a really interesting and robust conversation about that actually just yesterday, because our study circle meetings are every other Sunday. But it's not a long article; it's about 20 pages. It gives like brief spots in history. But I think it was actually really useful for us to ask these questions. Even like in terms of framing questions, like the so-called woman question. What does it mean when we talk about the role of women in whatever struggle, but we don't actually have a parallel? What is the role of men, right? Because that's always assumed in a particular kind of way. So those are the three that I have been reading and reading at the moment and would recommend.
What is the role of men? Take out the trash. Um, okay, so Maggie asked my thoughts on Leo Zillig's biography of Walter Rodney. Adequate. Um, he actually did speak to Pat Rodney, and I think she helped him sort of with things that were initially inaccurate or whatever. So it's adequate. There's more to be written, right? I think, and I don't know what Leo, I have a sense of what Leo's politics are, but I'm always interested in biographies that are written by people who share those politics. So, like Gerald Horne writing about the late Du Bois, right? Gerald Horne writing about Shirley Graham. Musa has entered the chat. So I think, yeah. So I think that there's obviously, just like we have 5 million biographies of Abraham Lincoln, I think there could be 5 million biographies of Walter Rodney from different perspectives. I would say of the two, I happen to prefer Walter Rodney's, but not, that's also because the focus is on political and intellectual thought, and that's my bag. Like I don't really like knowing about people's personal lives. And it's not that Leo gets like salacious or anything, but I'm most interested in people's ideas and their political praxis or whatever, which is not it's not separate from their personal lives. But I like what Rupert has to say, and I think there's something to be said about him also being like West Indian. So yeah.
Okay, and so that wraps our study section for today. And now we move on to revolution.
Oh yeah, but first, y'all let us know what you're reading and what you
Oh,
plan to read this summer. Maybe we'll do like a summer reading list in one of
yeah.
our next few episodes. But yeah, let us know what you're reading, and if you've read any of these books, like what you think.
God, the role of men is to hand me the ox cord. Y'all are funny.
All right, revolution, y'all get serious. Okay.
Are you serious? Okay, so one thing I just wanted to call attention. I really cannot breathe right now, Lord. Talking is making me out of breath because I can't breathe through my nose. Okay, so this came up in our circle meeting on Sunday, which is why I was thinking about this. Which is, so I don't think I fully realized that the UN does not provide aid to Palestinian refugees specifically because of their status or whatever, right? And so UNRWA is developed to give some kind of aid, some kind of international aid to Palestinian refugees. And UNRWA is the UN Relief and Works Agency. And so one of the things that came up with this is that there has been suspicion that Hamas leaders or Hamas members have been either living in or taking shelter in some of the refugee encampments, which then makes them question whether or not it is ethical or right to continue to send aid to the Palestinian refugee camps because of the potential of harboring Hamas leaders or Hamas members or whatever. And for me, this just sort of points out the contradiction. Well, I mean, we know what all these contradictions are, but there's just the hypocrisy of this particular moment, right? To be able to recognize a population has been displaced because of all these things, recognize that they are in desperate and dire need of basic supplies, so much so that you did form a separate committee to be able to do so, but then to be able to play with people's lives in a secondary way to say, oh, should we withdraw our aid and or support because of the ways that people are choosing to either support or just not resist the way that some members of the Palestinian community are choosing to fight back. And we over here believe in self-determination, so I will always say that whatever Palestinian folks decide to do, whoever they decide to support, including Hamas, if that is a choice that they make, That is their right to do so, particularly when the rest of the world is bearing down on them. But I just wanted to call that particular story to folks' attention as that debate is going on.
And it's, okay, let us assume, what if Hamas was a terrorist organization? Let's think about the United States. There are Klansmen in the US military at every level of the US government. I remember when Kyle Rittenhouse, a self-avowed white supremacist, enrolled at Arizona State University. Should none of these entities get funding because there are ostensibly, because there are these nefarious or unsanctioned factions within the government? Now, this is just for the sake of analogy. I am not calling Hamas a terrorist organization. That is not the position that I take. It is just, it just again shows the fucking hypocrisy. The US has sent all y'all healthcare money, all y'all student debt relief money, all y'all bridge money, all y'all clean water money to an army in Ukraine that has known Nazis. So again, as has Germany, the whole of all these NATO countries, all these EU countries. So what the fuck is you saying? It's clearly like, I just really wish people would just call a spade a spade. It's like, if you hate Arab people, if you hate Palestinians and think that they deserve whatever terror comes to them, whatever atrocity comes to them, I really wish people would just say it, because I think it will make the struggle that much more clear. Of course, nobody's ever going to say this. They hide behind this smoke screen of righteousness and human rights and democracy and this other bullshit. So I just, so it's absolutely absurd. Absolutely absurd.
It really is.
It's absolutely absurd. But it also shows how direct military intervention is the stick, aid is the carrot, but they're two sides of the same coin. That these aid regimes are precisely meant to reproduce the exact same hegemony, the exact same colonial domination as direct military intervention. So there we are.
Indeed.
So back to so people have questions about reading. Have you read Claremont Chung's book on Rodney? That's a small self-published book by UC. Yeah, so I have UC Quiena's. His is about the last years. I actually was reading that on the plane. There's an amazing allegory apparently that Walter Rodney told that UC Quiena mentions, where he says a lion went to an art gallery and was appalled by the way lions were depicted by the hunter. And the lion said, if only lions could paint. Anyway, that's the allegory. And I think it's very, very insightful. So anyway, I've read the Quiena, have not read the Chung's. I'm sure that I have it, especially if it's that, I don't think it's that red book. I have almost everything Walter Rodney, so I'm sure I have it somewhere, but I haven't read it. And then Reading Summer 2024, Derek R. Ford's Marxism, Pedagogy, and General Intellect, Beyond the Knowledge Economy. Very cool. Okay. Circling back. Yes, fuck the USAID.
Always fuck USAID.
Yeah. So, all right, y'all. Columbia. Not Colombia. Columbia University. Columbia University is having these encampments, right? Has put up these encampments. The first encampment was shut down. Over 108 protesters were arrested by the stormtroopers, aka the NYPD. And new encampments have sprung up. And this was, I think, initially the first encampment was in anticipation of the president testifying before Congress, where she went full fucking coon, full time, and just completely capitulated to these motherfuckers, and still is gonna lose that job, I'm certain. But
it was such a joke.
Such a joke, right? Since then, encampments have popped up in numerous places. Of course, this is being called anti-Semitism, but they popped up at Yale, University of Michigan, NYU, the New School, Tufts, MIT, Emerson, and Rutgers. There was temporarily one at University of North Carolina, Chapel Hill, that's since been moved elsewhere. And these are being spearheaded by the Students for Justice in Palestine chapters, and I think maybe the Jewish Voices for Peace are tangentially involved, or are directly or tangentially involved in some of these encampments. And so this is an interesting development, right? I am supportive of this action. I think I am always ambivalent about centering Western privileged people in the broader struggle. I do think that it is a form of solidarity. I also think it's annoying when people only start to pay attention when repression or violence happens against Americans and against a particular demographic of Americans. And meanwhile, the invasion of Rafah is imminent. And I've heard Colombia, and I'm seeing things about Colombia more than I am about Rafah. And these are supposed to be Gaza solidarity encampments. And I feel like given the way that U.S. media works and just the U.S. attention span, sometimes this focus or these forms of solidarity can shift focus to what's happening here and to victimization here, taking attention away from what's happening in Gaza. So I think it's important to note that.
And to note that the students also are aware of that too, and have been, at least on the Colombian Students for Justice in Palestine, have been pretty adamant about people maintaining the integrity of the protests, and to understand that, and to asking, because there's something you shared with me. I don't have it up, but where they said to make sure that you're not doing protests or demonstrations in solidarity with Columbia students, but in solidarity with folks in Palestine, in Gaza.
Right. And again, part of what these forms of protest can do, like, occupying train stations and shit, is that prioritizing peaceful protests over and above the panoply of strategies that we need, like capturing ships, like armed resistance, like you know, uh forms of direct action that don't take violence and confrontation off the table. So it's always difficult, right? I think that we do want people to be engaged, and we do want people to have an eye on what's happening in Gaza. And not only that, to make the broader connections to Haiti, to Sudan, to Congo, to Syria, to Yemen, and all of the, the massive amounts of imperial domination that are happening. But the settler colony is the machinations are just so cunning that there always has to be a critique of what this actually means, and that it's not reproducing like normalization and actually doing doing the work of distraction that actually is in service of the ruling class, and that is in service of imperialism and the Zionist entity. So but alongside Colombia, what's happening at Columbia is an academic boycott.
Do you want me to pull that up? I can pull it up.
Sure. So, wait, are you? Is this speaking out while working at the university? Okay, so this is a little bit different. So that there's an academic boycott. So Mark Lamont Hill actually just posted that he was doing some keynote lecture at Columbia. He's canceled, and apparently they're paying him 10 racks that he's not going to take. Yeah. That was important to mention for some reason. I saw Elazar Kelly, who is an alumna of Columbia. She's not going to attend this alumni panel. And a bunch of people. Tao Lee Goff was an artist in residence. She's renounced that position. And then so I think there's a broader demand of an academic boycott of Columbia. There was just a faculty walkout actually happening earlier today. Um, so so people are calling for an academic boycott, like don't accept any speaking. I think this people are also calling. Were people calling on this at UNC when that lady didn't get that job and then went to Howard?
Oh,
Anyway, there was some anyway. So an academic boycott, right? Which I also have thoughts about. But what are your thoughts, Layla?
I mean, the students are attempting to get Columbia to divest, right? That's their goal. That is why
Yeah.
they have created the encampment. And in that sense, choosing not to participate in the economy of Columbia, I think will make the university see that that is an issue that is going to continue to impact how they engage. And so to that degree, I think that it has some significance. I would agree with you though that if that's the only action folks are taking, that's completely insufficient. Um, if people were not concerned about what was happening in Gaza until it started to affect Columbia students or Ivy League students or university students in the U.S. in particular, that's also problematic. But I think that we've talked about it. It's to your point. Like there are multiple strategic points that we have to hit in order for these things to sort of take hold and take home, right? I don't know about giving up the 10,000 because in some respects I feel like you should continue to drain the resources and use it for other means, right? I do, I agree with deciding to denounce your affiliation, particularly if that's not your primary affiliation, choosing not to participate in Columbia sanctioned academic environments. But I also, I just think it's one avenue. And I think that it has merit as one avenue, one strategy of many.
Well, so I will say so before so I did a talk at Vanderbilt like 2 weeks ago, and this was after. So I will say that nobody reached out to me and asked me not to do this talk or whatever, right? But when I was doing the talk, comrades from Black Alliance for Peace reached out to me and was like, "This is what's happening," and so I took that opportunity during my talk to lift up the fact that these students have been suspended and expelled, and to express my solidarity. So that's the other side to it, right?
It
That
is.
it's not as if nobody's going to go do these talks. Now, I think now they're probably going to invite Zionist people or the people who are all willing to come, which are largely probably white, right wing, or liberal people. And so I think that for radicals, there's a way that we concede that space
Yeah.
when we boycott, right? And I don't know what the material impact is, because again, it's not like they're not going to have the keynote. Well, maybe they won't, I don't know, but they're just going to invite other people. Do you know what I'm saying? And so I
I
think
do.
that on the other hand, there are another way to think about this is that to implore or to push whoever's coming to speak to use that platform to lift up what's happening. So instead of doing a speech, to read whatever the demands are of the students, to use it as a teach-in for the students. So there's other ways. I just think that there's like we can think broadly about how we take back the space, and it's not just boycotting. You know what I'm saying? So I think that we need a panoply of tactics. Even as I don't have a dog in the fight. Like, I'm not against what they're doing at Columbia, but I also wonder. I think about that too, right? Like, how do we use when we do have these opportunities to speak, to like stand up, to stand 10 toes down, and really and bring more attention to what's happening on the campus. So
And I agree with that.
um,
But taking back the space is also interesting because it's not our space to take back, right? On the one hand, like, and it's but to your point, so I did watch the whole hearing with the Colombian president, and some of the people in the hearing were literally calling for the expulsion of all of these, like basically any student who has supported Palestine to like for their, what do you call it, their scholarships to be rescinded. They are calling for that as another sort of form of repression, to create these spaces as spaces that only affirm these Zionist positions. And on the one hand, like, I think it is worth something to be able to be there to disrupt it, but I also feel like we're at a point where we actually still need to do a lot of our own political education and mass building ourselves. And so I don't know, like I think that that energy certainly needs to be redirected. I don't think that the boycott should just be I'm not doing anything in Colombia. Particularly if you had something set up, I think it makes sense to do something adjacent, right? To do something that can still impact the community, but to refuse to be associated with Colombia's name or whatever. This is also just a random aside, y'all, but I don't know if any of y'all else watched that hearing, but I don't remember people's names. But the woman who kept saying infatada instead of intifada, it that shit just drove me crazy. The whole fucking hearing, and it made me so distracted. And but also like the hearing itself was also crazy because you think about the fact that these are people that are running this country. This man, one of these men asked, "Do you want Colombia to be punished by God because there is a covenant with God in the Bible to protect people of Israel?" And these people are not those people, right? But anyway, the hearing itself was just a show of fuckery and idiocy, and it really should make us all concerned. Well, I would say that those of us who are here probably have already long been concerned, but we are really being run by idiots, and it is really it's really alarming to see some of the things that were raised in a tone of seriousness in that fucking hearing. Like I don't even know what to make of some of those things.
So this okay. So Michael T says all power to the anti-Zionist college students. They're the current vanguard. That's exactly the problem that I'm talking about. Shout out to the anti-Zionist college students. They are not the vanguard, y'all. Like, they're not the vanguard. Like, they are one of the constituencies that matter and that are important. But vanguardism is a really serious thing that has to do with deep study, and that has to do with leading the masses in a particular direction. Again, the vanguards are Palestinians, right, in Palestine, who are struggling against the Zionist entity. And so I wouldn't use that language. And I think that this is what we actually need to be very mindful and clear about, right? So, okay, the repression of anti-Zionists reveals just how intricately Zionism is the rule of capital, white supremacy, and patriarchy. Sure, but I think that that means that those who are in the vanguard are the sufferers of Zionism, which is primarily Palestinians, with a particular emphasis on Gazans at this point. Although there was just the West Bank too, right? So all the while that this is happening in Gaza, the West Bank has been under like fervent attack as well as counterattack. So there's, I think, a general strike happening in the West Bank right now in response to a protracted sort of settler offensive that really left parts of the West Bank, Palestinian, where Palestinians reside, looking like parts of Gaza, right? So anyway, so I think we have to be serious and careful with the language that we use. And again, nothing happening in the United States should be considered the vanguard, right? It could be solidarity and many other things, but not the vanguard, unless it is a direct confrontation with imperialism, which peaceful encampments are important forms of resistance, but they're not direct confrontations with imperialism. In my perspective, that would make it the vanguard. So anyway, finally, I also just wanted to shout out like the Freedom Flotilla that's about to embark on a go to Palestine or to Gaza to bring aid. And again, I think this is a good development, but also because I think this is a multinational thing, they're probably going to get fucked up by the IDF. And again, we just need to be mindful of when our outrage is focused on people from Canada and the US and elsewhere being attacked more so than Gazans who are under continuous and unrelenting massacre, bombardment, and war intensified genocide. But the Freedom Flotilla is also something to look out for, if only as one way that the contradictions continue to be heightened through these confrontations.
Did you want to go through the conversation about speaking out while working at the university, or you want to save that?
Yeah, we're getting pretty long. We're at 1:20. So we will so we can talk about that next week. There was a tweet thread about speaking out while working at a university, which I don't know how much of our constituents, our people who watch us are in the academy, so I don't even know how relevant that will be, but it would be interesting to go through and see what this person had to say about that. But we can save that for next week.
That is because I can't breathe.
Yeah, okay, yeah. Shout out to Layla's nostrils.
Yo, I'm struggling over here. He's talking about fighting for your life. Like literally, when I'm talking, I cannot take in any air, so I'm out of breath.
Decolonize Layla's sinuses, man.
Yeah, please, like, troops up in there, break it down.
All right, y'all.
All right. Well, we thank y'all for being here as always, sticking it out with us. There's lots of comments to talk through. Hopefully, we'll have more. So, reminder that next week, Onye will be with us. Excuse me. If you need a reminder, say it again.
Yeah, send questions. If you have questions you want us to ask Onye or to engage her about, send them to our email, lifestudyrevolution@gmail.com, or you can leave them in a comment. We do read y'all comments, as you know, because we read them on the next show. So, yeah, let us know. Let us know what you're reading. What else?
You can also, if you, for whatever reason, just happen to be online and you want to send it, you can send questions to the LSR Instagram page. Not like, don't send it to us individually, but if you can send it to the LSR page, then that will also be cool.
Yeah, so on Instagram, I can't wait till next, y'all. We got a comment that put a bee in my bonnet. I can't wait to drag this motherfucker. Okay, our Instagram, our Instagram is LSR_podcast. If you want to DM a question there as well.
All right, y'all.
All right. Thanks, Maggie. Thanks, financial analyst. Thanks, Michael T. All right, see y'all next week.
Bye.
Bye.